And we are rolling. We got Jim Wendler on the line. This motherfucker squatted 1,000 pounds. More? Have you You've squatted more than 1,000 pounds, right?
Well, maybe the chalk added a few extra pounds.
And how many times did you squat 1,000?
I just did it. That was my last meet I did.
Bro.
And to make a long story short, that was always my goal. I saw when I was, I don't know, probably in high school, for like a freshman year, my dad got me a book by Dr. Squat. And it was on like plyometric stuff and things like that, stuff that I was ill prepared for. But I ate it up. And I, of course, in his bio, it said he squatted whatever was 10, 15 or whatever it was. And I was like, holy shit, like I couldn't even fathom that. Like 315 was like a pretty fucking solid number, maybe 500. So that was always like kind of a goal in my head. And then when I did it, because that's all I wanted to do, that, and I wanted to bench 500 because that seems like a kick-ass number, and I did 675. But so once I did it, I didn't have any. I knew I didn't want to do anything else because I didn't. For me, not for everyone else, but for me, that takes a tremendous amount of sacrifice. If you aren't hungry for it, just like playing a sport at a high level, if you're not hungry and want to do everything you have to do it, it's pointless to me. And so that was my last meet I did. And I set PRs, I think, on all 3 of my lifts. Obviously, my total was a PR then. And I was like, man, it's not getting better than this. So, but I think mentally I was ready to check out. And I'm glad I did. I did what I wanted to do. It wasn't the world record or anything, but I had at the time, a top 5 total in my weight class, and I was cool with that. And so, but yeah, and then after that, I just kind of trained, did what everyone else does, is train for fun. And it's just taken me on an awesome journey, since I realized I was 13 when I started training, and I am 45 right now. And, I'm kind of back where I started working with high school kids. And because, when I started when I was 8th grade, but whatever. So we have a really cool system here at the high school. My wife trains all the 7th and 8th graders. And so we do like a preparatory program to get them to learn how to do the lifts and do calisthenics and stuff like that. So they come in with more knowledge than they would if they would just come in, untrained, so to speak. So I've been doing this for, 5 years now, I think. And it's been the best thing I've ever done. It's just all volunteer work. I'm not saying I'm a Mother Teresa, but this is something I obviously would do if I wasn't getting paid, because I'm not getting paid. And yeah, so it's been an awesome experience for me. And I loved working with kids, and I love the sport of football. I don't like kind of how football, and regardless of the politics, it just, at least when I started playing college football, it was like the start of when everything, the facade had been lifted of it's a business. It really is. But at least prior to that, like, they faked it enough. Like, we're for we really want you to have a good experience and graduate and all that bullshit. But in high school, it's still, there's a team atmosphere. You can really teach these kids some lifelong stuff, whether it be training or personal responsibility. I'm huge on that. Taking charge of your own emotions and your attitude. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. And my big thing is, check yourself before you check anyone else. Make sure your own bed is made before you start criticizing everyone else's shit. So, and it's amazing because when you get them as 8th graders or freshmen, they're just clusterfucks of humans. And obviously, as they grow older and more mature, by the time you have the senior class, they are just a bunch of, at least to themselves, they're leaders to themselves. And then you have the few vocal kids who everyone kind of gets behind. Not vocal, but not just vocal, but leadership. And so all you have to do is get on them a little bit if, shit's getting out of whack. And it's amazing what happens. So I'm just talking out of my ass right now, but it's been the best thing I've ever done, and it's like a perfect situation because we never pass the ball. We run like an old school wing tee offense, and we just beat the crap out of teams. And, to be fair, and I tell this, I straight to the kids, we're never going to win it. win a game on talent. We just don't have a lot of small school. There's like 400 kids that go to our school. And so we have to just, out train the other team and, persevere. So the head coach and I are really good friends, and that makes a big difference, obviously. This is his team. It's not my team by any stretch of the imagination. So he instills a lot of good discipline in the kids. And, to the kids' credit, they I generally train 51 weeks out of the year. We only take 1 week off after the season, and the kids are ready to go.
That's awesome.
So, the story I always like to tell was, I think 2 years ago, one of our training days landed on Christmas Eve. And I said, if you guys want to show up, I'll be here, 9 a.m. And they all came. So, that's a credit to them. So, and the other thing is, you guys probably know very well, if you train consistently, you don't have to do a lot of stupid shit to get them in shape. They're already in shape all the time. Mm-hmm. So because of that, we're able to eliminate two-a-days in football because the kids are already in good shape. You don't have to beat the fuck out of them with two-a-days. So by the time you reach your first game, generally speaking, in the old days, you're already exhausted. You went through 14 days of two-a-days or whatever it is, and the kids are everyone's like 12 pounds underweight and exhausted. So now we go to our first games and we're refreshed, and so it's all worked itself out in a very good way. So very lucky. Very lucky.
That's real cool, man. And obviously you got very well known for your famous 531 manuals. You still writing now? Have you found yourself in the Corona time getting the creative urge again and churning some more books out, or what we doing?
I need like a boatload of drugs. Like Jimi Hendrix. No. I always the one issue, and this is going to sound kind of strange, but I have tons of stuff written on training high school kids, and it's nothing groundbreaking. It's not like either you guys are going to read it and be like, oh my God, you do what? But there isn't a big market for that. And I don't know if you guys ever written a book, or even when you write an article, sometimes for me to write an entire book would take about 1.5 years. And I don't even know if that's financially smart, if that makes sense. Because you're not going to, I wrote a 531 for powerlifting. We probably sell 200 regular books to every one of those, at least. So, I mean, so part of me is like, is it really worth, what did they say? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And I am an unbearable fucking asshole when I'm in writing mode. I just hunker down and I'm just yelling at everyone, and everyone's wrong but me, of course. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I started coaching, was because I just had finished my last book, and my wife's like, you got to get the fuck out of this house. You're just not good. You're not a good husband right now. You're a jerk. And she's like, you got to go. You got to go out and do something. So, and the other thing, I'm going to go back to this, is one of my big challenges was, could I get this to work in a large setting can I help turn a team around? Is this something that I could do? Can you guys hear me all right? I don't have one of those fancy dick microphones like you do. Notice that it's black, right? Anyway, I'm sorry. So that was like, and it was like, man, if I fucking fail, I'm going to, it's going to be bad news. And to make a long story short, from when I took over, when I started the training, the last season we were 3-7, I think. And then the next year we made it to the playoffs, and we're just a completely different team. So that's not just the training, but it does play a part in it. I'm not so narcissistic to think that, that was the only reason. And it's funny too, because when you're a strength coach, you see everything through the lens of strength coaching. So if some guy misses a tackle, what are you thinking? Oh, we didn't do enough agility work. Every problem manifests itself as, a strength and conditioning issue, when the reality is there's a lot of moving parts going around. And when you realize that you're just this sounds strange, but when you're a small part of the puzzle, it helps free your mind up a little bit. Like, listen, maybe we don't need to do all this stuff. We need to do just what we can do and do the things that kids are prepared for, and then we can work from there instead of trying to solve every problem with a drill or a lift, so to speak. So that's one of the things. And I still, we have 3 training days a week, and let's say out of, so a month is what, 12? Probably 3 of those days I come home thinking I'm the worst coach in the world. Everything I do is stupid. What am I doing? And I spend all night, I don't sleep that night, just rocking in my bed. And then, I have all these notes. And then finally it goes right back and it's like, we should just be doing what we're doing. There's you guys know the band Pink Floyd?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a story that was Pink Floyd got more and more progressive. They started trying to make different instruments and all these different things. And then they realized at the end, they were just trying to get all this other stuff to sound like what they already had. Like they used like this weird box with these rubber bands. He's like, what are you trying to do? Make it sound like a guitar. It's like, well, you got one right here, dickweed. And it was just like full circles. And I always love that story. It's like, okay. So maybe it's just about what we have and using what we have to our best advantage. So anyway, I love what I do, man. I really do. It's I got the chance of a lifetime to do what I love to do. So I'm thankful every day. I have it's a little dark in here. We redid the downstairs of our house. So I apologize, but, I bought this house in 2005, and there has never been a day that I haven't driven up the driveway. It's like, I fucking own a house. I'm so happy. So I'm very thankful. I'm, very appreciative, and I wish more people would be thankful for what they have. I mean, it's not a huge house by any stretch of the imagination, but I count my blessings, so to speak, every day.
So you volunteer as a coach, and you make your money selling programs and writing?
Yeah.
And how long has that been your 100% profession?
10 years now.
Since the first 531, right?
About a year later. So I had done some other stuff, and it was I have a family. And so it's one thing if, you're just kind of on your own, and I'm not dismissing that, but when you got mouths to feed and bills to pay, it starts weighing on you a little bit. So it's a huge clusterfuck, emotionally. But, one of the things that I stress over and over about, and I think Bill Belichick does this the best out of anyone, is I just approach every day just like, this is what I have to do. I don't worry about the bills. I just worry about getting the shit done for the day. And magically, things work themselves out. It's like, I'll just simplify this. Let's say you want to be a running back and say, listen, dude, just twice or one, every other day you either run hills till your legs are burning. The other days you do some squats and some push-ups and whatever, chin-ups. Magically, you're going to get in pretty good shape and get pretty strong. Or if you want to lose weight, like, listen, just worry about your next meal. Let's just worry about the next task, And so that's one of the things, instead of sitting here worrying about the bills, you just worry about what, I got to get up. What's the first thing I got to do when I get up? Well, I got to take a shower. And so every task is just a little thing that just builds up and builds up. So if you sit around worrying about shit that may or may not happen, it's just going to happen because you're not doing anything, So, but yeah, dude, it's an awesome life. My wife does all the business bullshit, so to speak. In fact, you're the very first person I've ever dealt with that I scheduled a podcast with myself, because I'll always forget. As soon as you contacted me, I had my phone and I had my alarm set because I don't have any memory for that stuff. And it's not disrespectful. I just blame CTE. I'm like, what are you going to do? Football ruined me. So, but she handles all the stuff that I, don't really want to do. And so that helps greatly. So there you go.
So since you started writing, since you sold 531, how many copies have sold?
A shit ton. Yeah, probably 500,000 maybe.
Nice.
Bro, I remember.
That doesn't count all the illegal downloads and stuff.
I know.
The first time that I saw, I think they call them torrent sites. I don't even know if they're still around.
Yep.
And I saw the book on there. This was in 2000 and early 2010. I got physically ill. I had to go over the garbage can because there was like 800,000 downloads.
Yep.
And I got out a calculator. And now that's not assuming that they're all going to buy it. And I started fucking dry heaving. I couldn't believe it. I felt, you know, I understand. Like, obviously, you get older and you get more mature and all this other stuff. But it was,
do you?
Yeah, well, kind of. Still, anytime someone farts on TV, I still think it's the greatest fucking thing. My son loves the show Johnny Test, and they got all kinds of fart jokes, and I am just like, it's so awesome, man. I still laugh. You know, so, and it's like always like, there's a book called Catcher in the Rye, and he talks about, you know, someone farted in the church thing, and everyone was dying laughing. And I still think like that's the greatest time to, like, when you're not supposed to fart. It just, so I don't know if I ever really grown up, but yeah. So not counting all that stuff. Yeah, we've done very well. Amazon has been very good to us. But even then, early on, I realized that you have to have a home base, because if you rely on Amazon or something very similar, then they control everything that you do. And we saw that we were in Florida when the Corona Bros really started cracking down, and Amazon's like, well, listen, we're not, only essential things are being shipped out. If that was only our home base, we would have been fucked. So we try to make our website accessible and easy to get to, and that being the mother site, so to speak, because we have total control over that. So, and of course, Amazon, eventually they're going to raise, you know, they charge you like a stocking fee. They, you know, how much space you take up in their warehouse, stuff like that. And which I'm not saying is a bad thing. It's their business, but they can increase those prices as soon as they have the total monopoly. They can just fuck you over. So,
yeah.
So that's one thing I was very happy that we did. You know, I just want as much control as possible. And I got that from the old, like, they call it DIY, like in the punk and hardcore community. They just take charge of their own records. They print their own merchandise. And and there's a great video from a surf guitarist named Dick Dale. If you ever saw the movie Pulp Fiction, you know, that opening kind of riff, that's Dick Dale playing his famous song. And they did an interview with him outside of a club, and they asked him, what advice would you give young musicians? And it was the best business advice I ever heard. Yep. He's like, listen, you're going to sell maybe 1/100th of the CDs, but you'll own all your rights. You'll make more money per CD. You own everything that you have. And he goes, just start selling shit out of your car and at shows. And then he goes, even if you sell less, because I used to get offers from big publishing companies and say, hey, you know, can we publish your book? And of course they dangle like, you know, a fairly large bonus. But then after that, you have to pay back that bonus. I don't know if you guys know how this works. So let's say they pay you $100,000, then you have to sell X amount of copies before you get any royalties after that. And each book is maybe 50 cents. So you have to, you know, so while you might get a chunk up front, they own everything. Mm-hmm. And you're never going to see another dime out of that unless you sell a shitload of copies. So that was one thing. Like, it sounds weird that Dick Dale was such a huge, huge influence on me, you know, business wise. So, but so we were able to maintain creative control and all that other stuff, even though obviously we sell less books than if we were at Barnes and Noble or a big publishing company. So, but end-to-end control, man. Yeah. You know, and then, you know, the other thing is, you know, obviously I'm going to die. And if my kids want to keep this up, they're more than welcome to. I have no weird ideas of immortality through this stuff. I think a lot of people get hung up a little bit on that, you know, when they're older. You know, like, I want my legacy. I'm like, man, when I'm dead, that's just like, I'm okay with my kids not bringing it out, and you know, they want them to do their own thing. But if it's an option and if it still sells well and they can you know, have some extra spending cash, you know, 100, you know, 50 years from now, then so be it. But I don't have like some illusions of immortality. I just think that's kind of weird. Like it's narcissistic in a way. I don't know. It's just like, I have to live on. It's like, dude. And I always, when I realized, like, can you name all, 44 presidents? No. And you're way less important than a United States president. So no one's going to give a shit when you die. Like, it's just, it's a very sobering thought, you know, like, yeah, I'm not that important. So, I mean, to my family, I am, but not to the rest of the world. So I'm okay with whatever.
So Jim, mate, so when 531 first come out, was this like a strategy from the demand? Like you were popular, or you just writing this and then you just put it out there?
It was like fucking accidental, right?
Yeah, everything was. Yeah, I'm the worst at that stuff. And again, it kind of has to go through the listen. I'm just gonna do what I know, and if something happens, that's fine. But I had no grand plan, zero grand plan to anything. And you know, I've heard some people say, no, you know, you had all this, you know, worked out from the beginning. I'm like, and then Dave's like, dude, trust me, there's no one worse at business, Dave Tate, than Wendler. I just kind of exist and hope for the best. And it has to go through the, you know, if you just do the right things and do what you believe is the right thing, things generally work out if you're willing to stick with it. And Mike, you were with Joe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So so you know, like Elite FTS and all that shit. Like when we started, it was me, Dave, Bob Youngs, and Danny Blankenship, who was a West Side guy. We would answer, I answered something like 400 questions a month for like 12 years or 10 years or something.
Yeah, their Q&A was huge.
Yeah, we never got paid or anything. We just did it because we loved to do it. And I love doing that stuff. It was fun, and you're providing a service and all that other stuff. But there was no grand plan. I didn't have like, listen, for 10 years I'm gonna do, you know, a shitload of work for free, and then you'll see. So you know, it was just, that's what, you know. And you guys are involved in the training industry. I guarantee you guys do more free work than you get paid for. At least in the beginning, that's all you're doing. You get paid here and there, but you know, so
then do you think from you answering all of those Q&As and building up a resume online, that was then, so when you dropped it, a lot of people probably wanted to support you for all the free that you gave back,
really,
right?
Yeah, it was you build a trust with the community, and it's been awesome because, you know, you get to meet a shit ton of people throughout the years, and you develop relationships. But even like you try to do a good job, whatever I'm doing, because you know, people still reference Saint Anger, like the worst Metallica album. And it's like, dude, they put out Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning and Justice for All, and like, you still give a shit what happened, you know, 25 years ago. So I mean, people are obviously forgiving with that, but in the fitness industry, you have kind of your street cred, so to speak. And, you know, obviously you're going to make some mistakes and everything. That's goes with the territory, but I think it's important that, you know, you try to do the best you can with whatever you're doing. And you know, and that's even with training with the kids and stuff. I don't make a huge deal out of it because I don't want to. Part of me is kind of weird about putting stories about the kids up. It seems kind of gross in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to use them as like bait. Like, see what I did? You know, I would rather honor the work that they've done. And so I don't really do a lot of what do you call it? Advertising or marketing with what I'm doing, just because I just think it's kind of weird. But I'll do, when I give seminars and stuff, we'll go over what we do. And it's the funny thing is, and I think, Mike, you'll understand, I don't know, Brooke, what your background is, but like Joe didn't do anything terribly fancy. I mean, so like when you go there, like, oh, they're going to do some squats, some glute ham raises, push and pull the sled a little bit. And he's like, well, that's it. Like, yeah, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes I think when they do these, like, people are like looking for like the special sauce. So like, I don't know what to tell you, man. We do squats just push-ups here and there. And so, and then, I can go on to this is I won't, this is going to get me in trouble here. I won't, I'll just say this. I know of a kid whose high school has some of the best facilities I've ever seen. So much so, though, that when Alabama played in a national championship game, they arrived a week early. That's the indoor facility and weight room that they used. Okay. Does that make so? That tells you how good this high school was. Mm-hmm. They have no strength coach. They just put the kids in there and you guys will figure it out. And so the more that I do this, the more I realize that it's not, you want to have good facilities or operational facilities, but the ship is going to go only as far as the captain. And I always like to use the thing is all three of us could be in the greatest nuclear submarine in the fucking world. And that thing just going to go, and then we're all going to die. Mm-hmm. And then, some experienced, admiral is going to go in with an old World War II sub and beat the fuck out of us, with a hatchet and a periscope. And, you know what I'm saying? So it's more about the coach than it is about, maybe the fancy equipment or the fancy programming or, whatever have you. So I see some facilities that high schools have. It's holy shit. How can you, I don't know where they get this money. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
So.
And there's no guarantee that it actually, like you said, it actually improves the performance. And then like you were saying before, it's all a small cog in the wheel of, sport performance. So that's one of the beautiful things with the 5-3-1 was the basic components that you add within it, and anyone can run it.
That was, you try and take away the stupid shit that I saw myself and others get caught up on. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's not, doesn't say that you don't continually try and evolve and improve, but there's occasionally, and I'm sure you guys see this, there's a kid who's just kind of going through and all of a sudden a light bulb goes off. And then all of a sudden he puts on 25 pounds and turns into a fucking, just an absolute savage on the field. And the more that I do this, the more I realize obviously genetics play a massive role, but it's kind of their attitude and just their approach just needs to be kind of here we go. This is what I'm doing. This is who I am, rather than, are we doing sets of 3 or doing sets of 5? Does it really matter that much? No. And I got some grandma and grandpa of one of the families. There's 3 kids now I've coached. She was asking me about a certain player, and I said, well, the problem is he's a big kid, he's very strong, but he doesn't love violence enough. And the grandfather's like, see, I told you, that's the key to playing football. You just got to love violence. And I was like, yeah, that's just kind of, you can have the great 40 time and you can have the great size, but if you're not willing to put your nose in and fucking decapitate someone, it doesn't really matter what you can have all the great stats. So, and you see that played out, especially on the high school level, where you'll play a team who's supremely talented, but your kids just want to fucking, I always tell them we're going to leave with their women and their finger bones in a necklace. That's what we're coming to.
Say that one again. Say that again.
We're going to leave with their women and their finger bones in a necklace.
You need to get on the t-shirt, mate.
They'll be wearing our colors at the end of the night. And
that's awesome.
So, Jim, man, you must have met so many coaches from all around the world. You do seminars all over the place. What really does matter? Because, you can get so lost in all the science, and now with all the testing and all the technology and measuring this, that, and everything. And if we're not talking about the elite pro guys, because for sure that there's exceptions to the rules with them.
Yes.
Coaching for, general pop and a lot of, amateur athletes, which, is going to be the bigger market that we're speaking with right now. What really does matter in terms of coaching?
Okay. There's the number one, well, there's not number one thing, but I'll address, and I'm writing an article about this right now. The first thing is you have to be able to communicate. Mm-hmm. And whatever that is, you have to be able to communicate with your kids and the coaches and stuff. So I remember Dave and I did a seminar, and we were laying in like in our hotel room, just sitting there, just fucking butt ass tired. And Dave, like we always just lay down and be like, you know, quiet. And Dave, someone would come up with an epiphany. We're like, holy shit, yeah. And I remember him saying, no one ever talks about communication, because you can have all the greatest ideas in the world. If you can't communicate with the kids, it doesn't fucking matter. Case in point, when I was a freshman at a college, it was not Arizona, it was a different college I went to. I met a strength coach there who I had read a bunch of when I was in high school. Smarter than like all three of us, we could, you know, double all of our IQs and the training knowledge. On the floor, he was a horrible, horrible coach. And I remember he came up to me and said something, and I was like, wow. Like, it was like taking off a Wonder Bra, and you're like, oh, really? That's all that you And it was like a real weird eye-opening thing for me, that I was like, you know, you have all this knowledge, but you can't communicate, and you can't get everyone to push forward. Okay? So that's number one. And the other, not number one, that's the first thing. The other thing is, and this is what I'm going to write about, is I get this question more than any other, is how do you get the kids to buy in? And the short answer is you got to have something that they're willing to, you got to be selling something. And so what I'm trying to say is, do you have something that they're willing to buy into? Are they willing to, is what you're selling something they want to buy? For example, you often hear that, hey, you don't need to bench press 900 pounds to do this and that. And that's entirely true. But the kids, it does matter to the kids. Okay. I'm not saying you have to be, you know, Jeremy Hornstra or whatever, I think that's his name, you know, tremendous bench pressure, but you have to show the same kind of discipline and dedication to something that you're expecting from the kids, whatever that may be. Case in point, let's say, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
Okay. I just started listening to some of his stuff. And so when he says something, you take it a little seriously, because you know he's demonstrating the same discipline and intensity to what he's saying that he's expecting out of you. He's not expecting to show up early, kick ass, have an awesome attitude, be willing to work through pain, all this stuff that we kind of take for granted sometimes. Are you willing to show the kids that you have that too? And if you're not, then you have to change that. And I have to, and it's a constant battle. I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, but when I don't take my own training seriously enough, I can see it in my actions as a coach. And I liken it to when you're on an airplane and they give you the safety instructions and you have it, and they talk about the air mask coming down. If it doesn't inflate, don't worry. Yeah, right. This plane's going down. They don't fucking care. But anyway, they always tell you put your mask on first before you help your kid. That's why you don't pass out and then you both are fucked. So I found out that if you're not, if your training is not super important to you, everything else will probably suffer too. And the kids end up seeing that. And I'll probably be able to write that in a little more eloquent way. But for a while, I found the kids' training was more important than mine. And in the reality of the situation, their training is more important because they're actually training for sports. A lot of these kids are getting scholarships. And obviously I want them to do well on the field, all that other stuff. But I still have to take care of myself. And if I'm not disciplined and dedicated to what I'm doing, I can't expect the kids to have that same thing. And it's a constant struggle. And because I'm not perfect in any, dude, if I could, I would just train and then I would sit on the couch and watch movies all day, you know, and, but obviously you can't do that. The point being is I think that's super important that coaches show that to their athletes, because now the kids will be like, well, fuck, you know, because everyone knows me as the weight vest dude because I do walks and shit with my weight vest all the time. Like, yeah, your coach is the dude. He's like, dude, he's scary looking because it looks like you're wearing a bulletproof vest. And every time my route is by the school, So you're walking by the elementary school and you know, like, gosh, someone's going to fucking shoot me. I know it. Like, here comes the militia. Or I'm the guy who pushes the prowler because I have a kind of a loop where I live, and it's a half mile. So I'll, in the summertime, in the fall, spring, whenever it's good, you know, I'll just do a half mile with my prowler, and people will stop, you know, wave and stuff like that. And so the kids at least see that I'm training hard. And a lot of times, like when a kid is injured, for example, I'll do prowler walks with them as we did with ACL guys as part of their rehab, because it's pretty easy on the knees when you're walking with a heavy sled. And I'll spend an hour and a half with those fuckers just going around the field, 20 yards at a time, just over and over again. And the kids see that, and they respect that. You know, I know I'm not going to, I could play maybe 3 plays, you know, before I tear my Achilles or something. But I think that's super important. So I know I've talked way too much there. So
no.
I think those 2 things are super important.
Example is a bedrock of leadership.
Yeah. Well, you know, the one thing they talked about George Washington's battle uniform having bullet holes in there. And he's like, you're only going to go as far as your leader goes. And if he's up in front, everyone's like, well, fuck, I kind of hate the dude, but man, there he is. Let's go. You know, at least he puts his money where his mouth is, and he's willing to kick some ass with us. So, and that's why, like, I always laugh when we have politicians talking about war. It's like, dude, like, you know, how can you send kids? You don't even know what it's like. You live, you know, you're mad when your air conditioner goes out. They're in a fucking sandbox where it's 115 in the shade. Tell me how to go to war. So, but
I think there's even something else when you said about if your training's not up to par, that the kids can see it. The other thing is that, like, you know, in yourself, you know what I mean? And communication, only about 25% of it is verbal. The rest are non-verbal cues. So like your body language, how you're, you know, treating them, you know, they're all going to sense that all off, because your sense of pride and the fact that, you fucking, you know, you killed yourself for just that little bit in the morning, you know, and it all adds up. You understand?
I think that's a great point. And you can see that even in regular life, when people who are always yelling and angry, they're angry at themselves. You know? And like the one thing I had learned when I was very young was the people who shout the loudest believe the least, because they need you to believe in what they believe in order to validate what they believe in. If you like, listen, I think this is good and this is good, I don't need for you to believe it, because I'm comfortable in what I believe. And I saw that very early on when I started doing a lot of Q&As. People would obviously send in some dickhead questions, you know, and you'd start defending this and that. And after a while, like, well, that's all right. You can believe that. And I'm like, I'm all right with that. And, you know, that's cool. And there's plenty of things that work and don't work. You know, and if you want to be angry about it, that's fine. But, you know, I got someone asked me a question one time. Some guy was very critical about how I train our athletes. And someone asked me, you know, what do you think about so-and-so ripping you? And I was like, well, why don't you ask the teams we play how well our kids are doing, you know, if it's effective or not. Because, man, no one wants to play us. We've had 4 teams now tell us that in our all of them were in our conference. We switched conferences, but they just refused to play us anymore. That's like the greatest compliment I've ever gotten as a coach. Like, you know, as part of a team, it's like, man, no one wants to play you. So, I mean, we're not perfect, but when you're putting out a physical specimens like that, and I take a great amount of pride in that. So, anyway, so it just doesn't bother me anymore. It used to. You know, you get younger, you get all full of piss and vinegar about shit like that, and now it's like, that's all right. And then you realize half these people are using your name as a way to drive traffic to them because they can't do it on their own, and you know, that's fine. I don't care. So, yeah. You ever hear the band Primus?
Yeah.
You know, they used to sell shirts and stickers that says Primus sucks. And you remember Brian Bosworth? I don't know if you guys remember him.
No.
He's a great linebacker from the University of Oklahoma, and he was a very polarizing figure. He was the original troll, so to speak. He opened his mouth all the time, was very flamboyant and stuff like that. And not flamboyant as in flamboyant gay, just And I can't remember what team it was, but he would sell, it says no bozo. Like he called himself the Boz, B-O-Z-O. So and it had his picture on it with the, circle with the crossed out. Well, he made all those shirts. And his buddies would go to games and sell them, like, to the rival team. Like, yeah, fuck this guy. He's like, yeah, we made him. So, whatever. So, but anyway, there's my answer, I guess. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore.
I love how much you take from other industries, such as the music industry, and bring it into your situation. Because, I mean, I read your 531s a long time ago, and then I lost contact with who you are and what you're doing. And then Mike, not too long ago, posted something about you discussing business advice that you took from, I can't remember which band now.
Oh, Dark Throne.
Dark Throne.
There you go.
Yeah. Norwegian black metal. Yeah. And I still stand by that today,
As do I.
Yeah.
That's it, dude. Bro, that is the advice that I give every single fucking person I know thinking that they want to quit their job and start this new life. Bro, I live by that because you never ever want to be starving like that and so fucking desperate. I love that advice. Dude, it's one of there's 3 things that you said that I fucking love. That's one of them. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And it's not because I've been involved in music and all that stuff for a long, since I've been a kid. So I'm not saying that the only group of people that I take advice from, but that's, people I admire and stuff like that. And so that's just what I'm familiar with, but I'm sure there's great examples everywhere. I mean, Louis C.K., even though everyone hates Louis C.K., or I'm supposed to, I'm not sure what the PC thing is, whatever. But he had something where he talked about, someone asked him about becoming a stand-up. He goes, it's going to take you about 20 years to be okay. And he goes, because someone had said, I've been doing it for 10 years. Like, 10 years, that's not enough. Like, you're barely starting out. And talks about, challenging and where to put jokes and how to challenge yourself to write better stuff. It's really crazy. And I wish I could save that, but he talked extensively about it. One of his rare normal moments where he wasn't telling offensive jokes and whatnot. So, but yeah. And it seems like every industry, it's all kind of the same stuff, same ideas, no matter if you're in music or comedy or training or something like that, or, whatever. So, I mean, even in the book, Good to Great, one of the things, they talk about is the people that have great businesses, they never did anything innovative. They just did everything better. So it wasn't about, everyone squats, benches, and deadlifts and does this and that. It's just, how can we do this better? How can we make this better? And I didn't have, it's not like that's what I set out to do, but like you see, like, how can we make this simpler and easier for people to understand? Because, man, I remember when I was a kid, it was tough. Like, and we didn't have, obviously, there's no internet. So everything you got was either word of mouth or you get a few books here and there. And I remember thinking, God, there's got to be like a simpler way where I can just kind of go in and just do something and I know what I'm doing. Because, dude, there's nothing more dangerous than like a 13-year-old kid in the weight room. Like you're better off giving him like a loaded gun, because the destruction that can happen both of the equipment and of their bodies is it's unbelievable. It's just, holy cow. So, but anyway.
So, so one of the other, actually, I'll tell you the other 2 things that you said that I fucking love. One was you were asked what's one of the best ways to gain weight?
Yeah.
Milk and D-ball.
Yeah. Dave put me on the spot and I was like, well, do I tell the truth? Like I was at the gun range the other day and this guy walks up. He's like, hey, I used to do this and whatever. I used to work, how it is. I used to work out, but I'm really out of shape. He's like, he talks about supplements. And I was like, nah. He's like, listen, if you want to take something that works, just take some testosterone. And the whole place erupted. He's like, see, I told you. I knew he was going to do that. I'm like, well, you want the truth or you want me to fucking bamboozle you a little bit here? I'm not saying that not all supplements don't work, but I'm like, listen, man, do you want the truth or what do you want out of me? And it's funny because if you tell the truth, then the conversation just kind of, well, that's it, you know? So much easier. So, yeah. I remember Ed Cohn saying one time, this was years ago. This was like when creatine was first coming out. So that must have been, what, 20 some odd years ago. And he was relating a story, and he was talking about creatine, and the guy he was talking to was kind of an old timer, not for us, an old timer. And he's like, hey, did you hear about creatine, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, well, does it work better than D-ball? He's like, no. He's like, well, I don't care. But it was like a real, like, man, why are you wasting my fucking time with this? I love that story. Oh, that's the best part about going to like the Swiss seminar and some of these things. You get to talk to some of the older guys. I got to spend a shitload of time on the phone with Dr. Ken. Holy cow, was he a wealth of just stories, unbelievable stories. I mean, I'm laughing my ass off. He's telling, and there's like shit that I couldn't believe. I was like, wow. He's like, yeah, everyone knew that here, but you know, what the press said was completely different. I was like, oh my God. I'll tell you that off. But, you know, you get some of these great. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. The third thing you told me, or you didn't say me. The third thing that I heard you say was someone asked, "Well, how do you get big traps?" I said, "Well, I don't fucking know. Just squeeze your traps real fucking hard whenever you're doing an exercise. You're doing fucking tricep extensions. Fucking squeeze your fucking traps. You're doing curls. Squeeze your fucking traps."
I remember I was doing dips one day, and it was in our garage, and it was, 195 degrees with the humidity. I had my shirt off, and my wife's like, Jesus, look at your traps. I'm like, yeah, they're so pumped up. And she's like, well, what'd you do? I'm like, I just did dips. Because, you kind of, I'm like, dude, everything hits your traps if you want it to. And it's funny, if you've ever personal trained like normal people, you're like, all right, we're going to do some tricep push downs or whatever. Like, I really feel that in my calf. And you're like, oh, God, yeah, it's the most calf movement. It's like, yeah, I guess, whatever, man. I don't care anymore.
So Jim, mate, are you still training every day? Like, what does your day look like?
For me, like personally, I try to train every day, but obviously life comes in. So anytime that I have a window, I'll get it done, because I always say life will give you a natural deload when you need it. So about 10 years ago, I got in a motorcycle accident, and to make a long story short, I had to fuse my spine. Oh, shit. I don't think that was the only thing that caused it, but I think it was a huge, I think a lot of other stuff that was just compounded it greatly.
They fused it with titanium?
Yeah. I got some bolts and some, I got hardware. I got a cadaver bone, stuff like that.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So to make a long story short, I rehabbed it and did all this, and I was 100%. And then in March or something, it started, like, my back just started hurting again. And it's like my back never hurts. It's everything else, like my piriformis, my IT bands, shit like that. And it got so bad that I couldn't walk. And I just like was, there wasn't anything like an acute trauma, like, I was squatting or something. So, I was literally, if I wanted to go from point A to point B, I have to hunch over and grab stuff. I had a cane. It was just miserable. And so, the best thing you just have to rest. So So because I couldn't do anything, I'm like, I'm going to fucking lose weight. I'm going to show everyone that I can just lose weight. So I lost 22 pounds. I just cut out like most of the carbs, and I literally couldn't walk. So I'm like, I'm going to see if this, see what I can do just to challenge myself. And I was like, holy shit. And obviously losing weight helps. But anyway, to make a long story short, I realized like I can still squat and deadlift, but it's not the same. And I'm like, I just don't really care. So I do about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I started doing like a lot of weight vest training. And I developed like what I call a walrus training, because it's the fat, bloated cousin of the Navy SEAL. And I call myself a suburban commando. Like, I can mow any fucking lawn I want, baby. I can move a bed. So, and then I ended up coming up with like how the SEAL is an acronym. So I came up with like a ridiculous acronym for the walrus, like washed up, lazy, retired, underdeveloped, and I can't remember what it was. Doesn't matter. So I started doing that, and I was like, so for example, what you would do is you have 30 minutes. You have I have an 88-pound vest. So in 30 minutes, you have to do 50 squats with a 106-pound kettlebell. So you hold it here. 50 push-ups and 25 chin-ups while wearing the 88-pound vest. And so I do some kind of variation of that probably 5 times a week. There's like a shitload of variations. And then whatever conditioning I want to do, I usually do that once a day. So like lately I've been putting on like a 30 or 40-pound vest, and I just walk up and down stadium stairs for like 45 minutes to an hour, like taking as big a strides, taking two steps at a time. So it's like doing like a fucking weighted step up for 60 minutes. I got that. I think that they call it the Harvard step test. And it's low impact. So I don't really hurt my knees or my back. And so that's,
do you use a stair stepper for that, or you actually walk up and down the stairs?
I go to the high school. They have the home side has a lot of steps, or I'll go over to a hill and walk up and down a hill. And it's horribly boring. I just put in some headphones and listen to like comedy routines and I'm at that point where I don't care. I'll just start laughing by myself. Someone says something and people are like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh man, you shouldn't, never mind. But anyway, I'll do the prowler, which is pretty easy on the back. Obviously great on the knees too, because you're not overstriding or everything. Run some of the stadiums and stuff like that. So, occasionally I'll try and deadlift, or squat. And it's just like, man, the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore. And I don't care enough anymore. I also have like 3 hernias sticking out, so I got to be careful about that. After the back injury and after the surgery, and then after this last kind of thing I hurt, I was like, man, it sounds, when I was sitting, I have a chair that, I have like the dad chair, that's where dad sits. I was sitting there with my back hurting me. I'm like, man, all I want to do is walk, go to the zoo with my kid. That's all I want to do. Like, it was never. So of course I'm in much better shape now than just walking in the zoo. But, and I'll tell you, man, you do enough, you have an 88-pound vest on doing push-ups and chin-ups and squats, dude, oh yeah. I am not going to set any strength records, but I'm in phenomenal, like, everyday shape. So I feel good. But yeah, it's good though, because I feel, I lost some weight, but ironically my legs got bigger. I don't know how you do enough steps, I guess, with the weighted vest and do enough.
Oh yeah.
Steps. And for a while I couldn't hold the kettlebell because it hurt my back. So I would just do, every day I do 200 squats with that vest on, 200 to 250. Dude, that's your legs. You're doing sets of 30 to 50. It's just crushing you. So, it's been good though. I feel like I'm doing something, and I feel like I can work towards something. I don't like just training just to kind of go through the motions, so to speak. So
yeah, you need some kind of fucking goal.
Yeah, and that's why I love football, because there's like a definitive thing that you could train for, and there was like a violence aspect that I loved. And it's very interesting. Do you guys know a psychologist or a psychiatrist? I don't know what's his name? He's been on Joe Rogan 1 or 2 times. Oh man. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Maybe if I think of it. He did an awesome TED talk one time about, he was stationed up at the Restrepo in Afghanistan. You guys familiar with that, Restrepo?
No. It
was a base, or I guess you'd call it an outpost. I don't know. In Afghanistan, that's this tiny little area saw about 75% of the firefights in Afghanistan. Okay. And they would send up these troops, like, I don't know, let's say 20 guys, I'm not sure. And they'd send them up for a month and they would come back down. And you were going to at least lose 1 or 2 guys every time. And like they'd have to burn their clothes. It was just 150 degrees or, just nasty, and they didn't have any showers or anything like that. Miserable. Well, he went up there and hung out with those guys for a while. So as expected, most of those kids have horrible PTSD. All of them lost their good friends. And years later, he was doing the TED Talk, and years later he asked a bunch of these guys, like, hey, knowing what you know now, would you go back? All of them said, fuck yeah, I'll go right now if you want me to go. And his argument was, or his idea was, war is bad. We understand that, but what do men need? Why do they need this? Because you get a brotherhood that you can't even imagine. And that's something I think in a very small way that football gives, especially on the high school level. You get a community. The kids get to act in a way that we're supposed to act. It's only been the last, 150 years that we've been kind of civilized, so to speak. And without the major ramifications that war brings. And he said, that's something we really need to examine. And, but anyway, just
purpose.
Yeah. It gives you a brotherhood that you can't understand. And they, the fact that they're always trying to outlaw all this shit just drives me bananas, because the kids need it, man. The kids need that brotherhood. And we're basically put here to fucking fight, and when you take away the fighting, it's going to have to go somewhere.
Yeah, but then when the kids can't sit still, they just get given prescriptions.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, it drives me bananas. Yeah. You can't function with 30 other kids when you sit down with your hands on the desk. Why can't you just shut up? It's like, So for I think 3 or 4 years, we partially homeschooled our kid, because we pulled him we would pick him up at the end of, I think it was kindergarten, and it just looked like his soul had been taken.
Wow.
And it was heartbreaking, because my youngest kid, he's the blitzing linebacker who the coach says, listen, if you see an opportunity, you should blitz. And he's like, every play, he's like, I saw it, man. I saw it. Here we go, motherfuckers. No. So he needs that activity. So, we would take him out at like noon, and we would just let him run and ride his bike and run. Then we would do the lessons. Then we'd go let him run again and ride his bike. Then we'd do some lessons. And he thrived. And kids need that. And I know they did a experiment I think it was in the Fort Worth area, where they give elementary kids, I think 3 or 4 20-minute recesses, and their test scores skyrocket. Mm-hmm. And but they're just trying to drum that shit out of our kids. Even when I coach when we have the 7th and 8th graders, my wife works with them now, but they're so wholly physically unprepared. It's unbelievable. And but thank God the government's part of it. They know what's best. Bunch of fat turds running everything. I'm serious. Name one guy besides Dan Crenshaw. You're from Australia, right? You don't know Dan Crenshaw.
No, I'm English, but I know he's the one with the eye patch, right?
Yeah. He's the only guy that I would even remotely consider a leader in any politician. They're all fucking slimy bastards. I gotta follow you anywhere.
Honest to God, I don't know anything about any politics, any politicians, even within this country. This country, I live in Swiss, and this country's safe.
Yeah.
And I can't control it. I don't care about it. I'm like, ignorance is bliss, in my opinion. I'm like the king of my little kingdom, and I don't really give that much of a.
Well, one of the, it's sometimes you don't want to pull back the curtain, man, because it's hard to tolerate. When you start seeing what's going on, and you see our rights just being stripped away, and people like, oh yeah, it's a great idea. I want less rights. Like, holy shit. You're never getting them back, right? Ever.
It's the illusion of security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't even get me.
So you said that you have a family. So what advice do you give your kids? Like, what's sort of the philosophy that you have within your home? I mean, you mentioned that you had no clue of what you were doing when you were younger and that, but are you a bit more purpose driven with, you said I think you said
yeah,
you know,
there's, the goal is to raise an objective, physically, mentally strong, independent kid. That's what I really want. I don't really care what he does for a living or anything like that, but I want him to be a good person with a good heart, who's independent. I don't want him to have to rely on too many things. So one of the things that I always say, not just to my kids, but to the kids I coach, I said, it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. For example, I got hit on a highway. Some kid was texting and driving. He ran into me, smashed me. I got dragged 100 yards down a highway, and I thought I was fucking done. When I got hit, my body jerked, and I remember thinking, holy shit, this is how I go. That was like my first thought. Like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And this is it? Like, God damn it. And where am I going with this? So anyway, so I could spend the rest of my life blaming that dude. But the bottom line is, it's my responsibility to get my ass back in shape and make sure that I'm healthy. That's how it is. And you may have got dealt a shit hand, or you may, the teacher may not like, whatever the case may be. It sucks. I get it. Like, a lot of people get stuck behind the 8 ball, but it's your responsibility, and you have to take, you have to take you have to take charge of your own life. And I'm not going to go into details, but we had some serious shit happen within our family. And I couldn't believe how wholly and amazingly unsatisfied I was with the police and the child welfare shit. All right, that's all I'll say. I mean, if you think you're going to get any satisfaction from any of these fucking people, any kind of justice, anything like that, it's just not going to happen. So it's on us now as a family to take care of our own business. I think waiting around for someone else to appease you and to change you is just a fucking horrible, horrible way, even with all the shit that's going on, the police crap. And in my case, the police were not deviant or anything like that. It just, they can't do anything. Like, you just can't do anything. And I'm not saying that they should have in any way, but it's just, you're never going to get any satisfaction. So you have to take it upon yourself to get shit done. And, if you want something to change, you got to be the change to happen. And, here, a very small way of doing it is, if you, like, I'll give you an example. A lot of the music that I listen to, I just haven't been inspired by anything that's coming out. So I decided to start a band. I'm going to start playing the music I want to hear. Not like I'm going to sell it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to fucking do this. I'm going to play music. I'm going to teach myself how to record, teach myself how to play drums and guitar, and we're going to figure this shit out. And instead of waiting around for someone to make the album you want, just you figure it out. And now, of course, it doesn't always work out that way, but if you want to change, you got to do it. You got to be the change that you need. And, one of the things that drives me fucking bonkers is when people just drop their litter everywhere. It just drives me nuts. So when I'm at school, or if I'm walking up and down the stadium stairs, I pick up every piece of trash. And the kids asked me one time, they're like, why do you do that, coach? I'm like, because if I don't do it, no one will. No one will. So now the kids, when they see trash, they fucking pick it up and dump it. So you lead by example. Instead of me complaining to the school board, nah, why don't we have this? Well, you fucking go pick it up, asshole. And I remember I was doing the stairs one day. I started picking shit up, and another guy was there too. And he's looking around. He's like, oh, fuck, I guess I'll pick up some stuff. So we cleaned the entire stadium, me and this dude. I'd never even talked to him. He's just like, give me the thumbs up, and we left. So, but that's the big thing with my kids. And, of course, you want them you got to push them in the right direction. Like, we have physical fitness in our home every day. It's not like drill sergeant shit, but he's got to do stuff, and he's got to read every day, stuff that I think is super important. But you got to install some ethics and morals in these kids because, and you know, understand that if they want something done, it's got to be, they got to do it. So I just don't see that being done enough, you know. So I have a 16-year-old, man. I preach to that kid, like, listen, man, you got to protect your rights. This is, you know, he's getting to that age now. He sees shit being stripped away. I'm like, man, as long as someone's holding that flame up, we're going to be okay. You know, people are always worried about this and that. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of Americans who love what we are and, you know, what we, free speech. I mean, we see that being stamped out and people like want it. We need to censor people. It's like, what? How, who cares if you don't like them? Just fucking don't listen to it. You know? It's like a radio station. You just turn the fucking channel. It's fine. You don't need to listen to people. So anyway.
Are you still riding?
Oh yeah. I write every day. You know, I have try to write part of an article or anything I can.
Oh, no, not riding, motorcycle.
Oh, I have 2 motorcycles. I just sold one the other day, and my other one's in Louisville. I didn't have space for it here, so I'm like, I'll just keep one there. And I haven't ridden in probably a year now, maybe less. So the one thing that, because you know, when I rode over to the high school, you know, when we started training, for example, when we start training, it's right when school about lets out, and holy shit, you want to know what a bunch of high school kids, you want to get dangerous, you're better off like doing a figure 8 with a bunch of fucking crazy motherfuckers and a bunch of high school kids driving around looking at their phones, you know. Oh, I love it. They want to raise the voting age. I'm like, dude, they can't even drive a car. Or they want to lower the voting age. Dude, they haven't even figured out you can't look at a phone and drive at the same time.
Yeah.
But, did you see that dude who took a dump in Nancy Pelosi's house?
No.
He live streamed him taking a shit on her fucking driveway. He calls himself the Pelosi pooper. Nancy Pelosi kind of no one likes Nancy Pelosi. And in San Francisco, you can take a dump on the street and they can't arrest you anymore. It's completely legal. Yeah.
It's disgusting though, San Francisco. When I was there, I saw in 9 o'clock in the morning, a guy shoving a needle in his ass cheek at a bus stop, and then another guy taking a shit.
Yeah. Dude, San Francisco is a beautiful city. It used to be just amazing. And then, so some guy just like, he was a YouTube guy. I don't know. I don't even know who he was, but he's like, he called himself the Pelosi pooper, and he just dropped trout and just took a shit. And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Of course, they got all mad at him. It's like, well, why? What's the difference?
Yeah, where, dude? I was telling you before about how much I fucking hate LA, bro. When I was in LA, I walk straight out. The hotel I was in was like $1,500 a night, right? I walk straight out. There's a dude smoking meth at the 7-Eleven. I go to the right. 2 blocks down, there's a kid's park. 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds are playing. I look to my right. There's a guy squatting down. His whole asshole is hanging out as he's sitting there lighting a thing of meth. And I'm like, what the fuck? Where are the cops? I look to my left. 30 feet that way is a fucking cop. No one gives a shit. I'm like, do you guys fucking see this? I talked to the owner of the hotel. He goes, you think this is bad? You should come to San Francisco. I said, what's in San Fran? He goes, I have a more expensive hotel there. You can't walk out without stepping on needles.
Yeah. Well, they have a app on your phone you can download in San Francisco that shows you where all the poop is. They call it the poop app. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. But, you know, again, this is what they voted for. I don't know. That's what they want. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's why I live out in, you know, the flyover states that are shitty, supposedly, with all the degenerates and stuff. Yeah, we're so degenerate we shit in the toilet, you know?
So, bro, check this out. We got a decent amount in common. Both Brooker and I both ride.
Okay.
And here, this is my podcast room right now.
Ah, look at that.
Yeah.
You like, do you play anything else, or do you play in a band or anything?
So no, when I was younger, I didn't want to go to a regular college. I wanted to go to music school. My dad wouldn't let me. I wanted to be in the fucking marching band on the drum line. My dad was like, that's absolutely not happening. And so I started teaching myself the piano before. I'm back in school now. I'm getting my doctorate in acupuncture. But before going back to school, I started teaching myself the piano. I love music. I love playing the drums. I never learned how to play the guitar, but I wanted to learn how.
If you can play the drums, you can play the guitar, because this is your picking hand, and it's you're basically holding a rhythm, dun, 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 like with a ride cymbal or the hi-hat, and then you just got to know a few chords. I mean, AC/DC, dude. I mean, what they did was actually more difficult than people will ever give them credit for, but you don't need to know a lot as long as you can write. You know, I'll give you an example. Is Rush. Okay, tremendous musicians, right?
Neil Peart.
All of them just fucking wizards. And they wrote 2112, which was a double record. Each song was like 38 minutes long or something. And then they were like, you know what? Let's just condense everything. Just write good songs. We can still be great musicians and write good songs. So it's almost to the point where you get you can do all the fancy shit, but if you can write a good song, you don't have to be a great musician to write a good song.
Yeah. Well, I think, dude, I mean, you look at Metallica. I mean, bro, all their songs are in E, right?
Yeah.
Everything's in E. But I started off, the band I was in when I was like 14, we were a Metallica cover band, essentially. There wasn't a single Metallica song we couldn't play. And then I graduated from that. I ended up being more prog rock. I started getting into Dream Theater and like Liquid Tension and all that stuff. Yeah. And I mean, it's complicated for the sake of being complicated.
You're masturbating on a fretboard.
But I mean, some of the best times I ever had was just laying down like Metallica shit. You know what I mean? Like real simple. I mean, and Lars is the drummer for those of you listening. He's a simpleton when it comes to drumming, right?
The weird thing is the old joke is there was always for those that don't know, Metallica's it's their second bassist technically. Cliff Burton passed away in a tragic bus accident.
Newstead, man.
And they always put a picture of, there's a shirt that has a picture of Cliff that said it should have been Lars. But the one, and I always, when I was at EFS, I always talk about metal, and I'd always say, Lars Ulrich was not a great drummer. However, him and James is Metallica.
100%.
And they write great songs together. And so you don't have to be the greatest drummer in the world, and he's better than most other people could ever think about. But the point being is, for whatever he does with James, they write great songs together. And if you listen, I grew up, let's put it this way, I bought Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning when it came out. That shows you how old I am, how long I've been a metalhead. So, but if you listen to even like parts of Kill 'Em All and then Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, there's not a bad song on there. I mean, it's just like Damage Incorporated is still one of the greatest lyrically and just an awesome song. Like, fuck it all and fucking no regrets. Just a tremendous, like you can't listen to Damage Incorporated without, oh my God. They write great songs, and even like, Slayer.
That was my first concert.
Yeah, that's a tough. That's like fucking a porn star. Your first time, you're like, is this always gonna be like this? Like,
Bro, Slayer, Meshuggah, and Sick of It All. That was my first. I was in 7th grade, bro. No bullshit. I was in 7th grade. I was 4'6", 75 pounds.
Got tossed around like a windmill.
So the bouncer looked at me and my buddy, and I bought one of those T-shirts, and they were all XL on me. It was down to my fucking knees. And the bouncer looked at me and was like, no. He gave me and my buddy backstage passes, and we sat right up front the whole time. But like, bro, if I had been in there, I would have fucking died for sure.
When I was for, I don't know, maybe 8 years, I used to always go to a big what was it called? Maryland Death Fest. 4 days, the death, black metal, grindcore, all this from all over the world would come to Baltimore. And so obviously Slayer would never show up there. But every show you go to, because there's probably 100 bands that play there over 4, it's fucking crazy. It's awesome. But that's Slayer is still the rallying cry for everyone. So you just be like waiting for the band to come on, and then some dude just yells Slayer. It's still like the unifying thing, you know. It's like, oh yeah, all right, you're all right with me. But even like you listen to Slayer, like you listen to like Angel of Death.
Yep. Oh, so good. Rain in Blood.
Yeah, there's tremendous songs. Like my wife heard Rain in Blood for the first time. And she's like, dude, this is awesome, you know? And the best, you know, so my wife has been initiated into like the underground scene, obviously more than she'd ever want to be part of. Like I'm talking like, I just got the new Malthusian CD, you know, shit that no one even knows, the new Panzerfaust. Anyway, so we were in the car one day and For Whom the Bell Tolls came on. By
original or live?
Tremendous song. There's only like 2 parts of that song. There's the beginning, and then there's the, you know, with 3 parts. But anyway, and she's like, wow, this is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great song, you know. And she's like, who is this? I'm like, it's Metallica. She's like, oh, man, what happened?
They kicked Newsted out. That's what fucking happened. I refuse to listen to any of their music since they kicked out fucking Newsted, bro.
Yeah, but he also did reload and stuff like that. But, you know, I still, the point being is no matter what genre you're in, whether it be, you know, death metal, black metal, anything like that, if you can write good songs, like the Cannibal Corpse, you would know Cannibal Corpse. You ever seen the movie Ace Ventura?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So Jim Carrey was a fan of Cannibal Corpse. The song that they play is called Hammer Smash Face. It is so fucking catchy. Like, you can't help it. Like, oh, yeah. You know, it's like, but they're still singing about smashing some dude's face in with a hammer, you know, with guttural vocals, you know, and, you know, obviously about 270 beats per minute when they blast. But I'm like, dude, the same tenets apply, whether you're, you know, singing for Satan or singing for Jesus, you know, or whatever you're singing for. You got to have a good song, man. And that's, you know, like Tom Sawyer. Everyone knows Tom Sawyer from Rush. And that was their moving pictures for Rush was kind of like their Black Album. Like the Black Album, because if you remember, And Justice for All was kind of proggy. It was just long songs, like 35 different parts and stuff like that. And they just kind of stripped it all down and played very basic stuff for Metallica. And Moving Pictures was their Black Album. They're like, dude, I'm so tired of having to just stand there and remember everything. Let's just fucking rock. Mm-hmm. So, dude, Mastodon did that too. They did Emperor of Sand, which is like insanely prog. And then they went off and did The Hunter, which is just like, listen, we got 4 minutes. We're doing verse, chorus, maybe a bridge in there. We're going to fucking do it. Let's go. And it's awesome. You know, like a good band can do that. So, but anyway.
Well, so to bring it all back, one of the main reasons that I love learning new instruments or learning new tasks is you could end up taking all these different things, right? Like, dude, Metallica, For Whom the Bell Tolls, that's a really simple fucking song, and it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like Erotomania by Dream Theater or Liquid Tension or anything like that. Like, it's nothing crazy, right? Usain Bolt is pretty much doing For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Yeah.
He's running, he's jumping, he's throwing shit, he's lifting some shit. It ain't that fucking complicated. Like with these high school kids, it doesn't have to be anything outrageous. And all these things that I take from all these different avenues that I'm just trying to learn how to fucking do is it comes down to simplicity. It's all these simple concepts. And people don't fucking get it.
So the head coach at the football of where I am, his brother also coaches football, and his brother's like, dude, what are you guys doing? You know, holy shit. And he's like, do you think I can sit in on one of your training sessions? And my head coach, Kyle, says, yeah, you're more than welcome to. But he's like, just be prepared to be underwhelmed, dude. It's nothing. You're not going to see anything. You know, the kids they got their sheets and they do the weights, and then we do this, and then we do that, and then we got to run, and then we're done. He's like, we're not doing like, you know, fancy drills or anything like that. He's like, really? He's like, I'm telling you, man. And our kids don't max out or do anything that crazy, you know. But like I said, it's amazing what happens if you're just consistent, you know.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So I tell these freshman kids too all the time, it's a 4-year plan. Just relax. You don't need to be dead after every training session or anything like that. And so, but But, you know, one of the things when I was at EFS, coaches would call me up because they were strength coaches in high school, whatever. And they'd ask me these questions. I'd always say, well, tell me a team, if you knew a rival team was training this way, would you want to play them? Tell me what would scare the shit out of you. You know, like, well, if they were doing this. I'm like, well, maybe you should do that then, you know. So be the team that everyone's going to fear physically. And, you know, I wish we had a hill closer. We do have a hill like 30 minutes away. That's fucking.
Yeah, you guys are all flat out there. Yeah.
Well, we have 2 hills that are insane in this. We are not within about 20 minutes of us. And, it's a reservoir that they built up. It's a man-made reservoir. The hill is fucking insane. I used to take people when I was working at EFS, I would, when I lift, I would do the main lift, 1 assistance lift, and I'd go run hills 4 days a week. And so people that were coming by or visiting, I'm like, well, come on, visit, you know, and I never had anyone not throw up. And that's not the goal. But I remember some guy, I told the guy, I'm like, listen, dude, if you ever want to find God, he's going to be at the top of the hill because you're going to be fucked up. And so one day, this was a firefighter, came by and trained. He got up to it. He was the 6'1" he ran. And he was standing there and he started just puking. He had his hands up. He was like, I see Jesus. I see Jesus. Yeah, so, you know, it doesn't have to be complicated. It has to be smart. That's the other thing that I constantly harp on. And one of the things that I got from DeFranco was we just bodybuild the upper body pretty much.
Yeah.
Not terrible, because in order for the kids to get their benches up, they have to have some muscle mass before anything happens. And that's usually the weakest and most underdeveloped part. So I just tell them all we're doing is building armor. And so I call it you bodybuild the upper and athlete the lower. And then with the squats and deadlifts and everything else, we're just trying to become explosive and strong more than bodybuilder-esque. And then the kids love it because they're like, well, as long as I get my jumps in and my mobility in and my trap bar work or squats in, then it's just, woo, you know, they're fucking doing anything. Like, you got 20 minutes. Here we go, boys. You've never seen so many curls and pull-ups in your life and, you know, whatever. So, but that's pretty much, that sums up what we do. And then we run year round. I found if you run year round, you never have to run that much.
Yeah.
And so it's underwhelming how little we run as far as total distance, but we will run unless there's like a hurricane. We run in the fucking snow. Yeah. The kids know you got to bring your gear. We're going to run. We'll shovel off some of the snow, you know, and do what we have to do, but it will happen. So you can't take it there. So my wife and I always laugh because all those motivational shirts, like no days off. And we're like, we take Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays off. I don't know. I believe in hard work, but I believe in smart work, you know, more than anything. So
it's real tough for the smart work shit because, I mean, I coached Bergen Catholic. Okay. And their football team they were next level for a while. And when I first went there, the only reason I was there was because Nunzio Campanelli, he was their head coach. He's at Rutgers now. And he tracked me down. And he says, listen, like, I know you do weird shit. You do stuff completely different from what we do.
Yeah.
We need something fucking different because what we're doing isn't working.
Okay.
I said, you got it, man. Like, so we're going to do it. And
that takes a big fucking coach.
That's exactly right. Right. He was bought into me, but very few of the kids were because, I mean, they didn't have as much of a base as I would have liked, but I mean, I expected that, you know? So what did we do for like the first 8 weeks? They barely lifted weights. They did fucking lunges. They did hip thrusts. They did push-ups. They did pull-ups. And our fat linemen, by the time we were fucking done, they could do some fucking pull-ups, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But they didn't like it. They were sitting there. Parents were calling up like, this is bullshit. Why isn't my kid lifting weights? But the kids didn't like it either. We were running a fuck ton. We did tempos twice a week. We did speed work twice a week. They were doing a lot of running because I had to get them in running shape because football's a fucking running sport, whether you like it or not. And the buy-in wasn't there had it not been for the coach sitting there. And dude, maybe I don't put this on the podcast. I don't know, but
well, that's good. They got him to buy in.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a limit, but this is what you was mentioning before, Jim, is these kids, they need struggle, because men can be created, right?
Yes.
And it's just what you're going to throw at them. So some survive, some get stronger and some don't, but overall it's generally a positive thing, right?
That's the good thing about football, is there's an expectation of struggle, other than, like, let's say a PE class where you're going to get 8,000 notes from different families about why the kid can't do this and that. But at least with football, there's an expectation of toughness. Now, that doesn't always hold true in every area or every, school, so to speak. But especially here, like, there's going to be shit that's going to be hard, and that's good. You want that to happen to you. And, I tell the kids how lucky they are that they get to go out and test themselves every Friday night, because I don't get that anymore. Like, my test is my training, and that doesn't even compare.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to tell people is they ask me, like, well, how much did you squat? Like, I squatted 1,000. He's like, what about in training? My best squat ever in training was 825. And I barely got that thing. Huh. My best bench in training was maybe 605, maybe. And my best bench was 675. I just, like, I think there's certain, and I'm not calling myself a gamer or anything like that, but I think you have to, when the time comes, like, I was very well trained for powerlifting because I had already played. I'll never forget Louis. We were doing a Friday squat workout, which are incredibly competitive and, hostile, a lot of shit talking. Nothing I hadn't already been used to from football, because that's all there is shit talking in football. And so Lou said something like, you think you're ready for this or something? I said, oh, man, I've played more people in one game, in front of more people in one game than you've lifted in front of your entire life. And it just went, boom. I was like, dude, you ain't going to get me, man. Like, it's not so much whether or not that's true. It's that, like, you're willing to stand up. Like, if you back down, man, it's the same thing, like, with a bully. If he bullies you, if you punch him, even if he beats the shit out of you, he's not going to want to punch you again.
Yeah.
You got to swing back so, and that's kind of how we play football. I tell the kids, listen, if they're not going to break the first series. They're not going to break the second series, but the third or fourth, they may start to quit. And that's all you want. You just want, because there's nothing better than getting a man to quit.
Yeah.
It sounds bad, but you just own their souls then. You just own them, and you just fucking drive them in the dirt. And then that 4-yard runs down an 8 to 12 to a 15, and that 15-yard runs now a touchdown. And because all of a sudden you get out of position real quick when the 230-pound running back comes through. It's like, I had the angle, but you only get hit by a fucking freight train so many times before all of a sudden you got that old hammy kicking back in. Or the old trick knee. That's the old guy thing. I love to play basketball, but I got a trick knee. It's like, what are you, David Copperfield? You fucking anyway.
Jim, what was your prep before the competitions then? So, I mean, if your training maxes weren't anywhere near your competition maxes, what was you doing in competitions to get that extra edge going?
I didn't really do any I think for what I see today is I think people take the prep a little crazy. It's like they make all these wholesale changes. Again, all I did was, like, someone asked me one time, for example, like, what do you do the last 2 weeks to prepare for a meet? I said, nothing I didn't do for the first 16. That's what really matters, is all that consistency leading up.
So no real taper or anything like that.
You maybe the last week or the last 2 weeks, you kind of back off some of the assistance work or whatever. Or maybe you start working up a little bit here and there. But for the most part, it was just you lift what you're supposed to lift, whatever the thing is, and then let the chips fall where they may. Because, like I tell everyone, they always talk about this peaking stuff. And I said, listen, man, strong people lift big weights. That's just the way it goes. And now there's some people that maybe respond better to these elaborate peaks, or maybe mentally they need it, which I think is probably more the case. But it's not like a weak guy is just going to take a huge dump unless he's mentally weak. And I think that's where that comes in more than anything. And I think the other thing is, more than often than not, especially for powerlifting, the people get so anxious about it that they start doing meets before the meet, and they start overtraining when they should have been addressing all these issues mentally and physically 3 or 4 months later. And then they just try to play catch up. It's the same thing as like what I see football teams doing is if we run 3 days a week from the time the season's over, let's say at the end of November, all the way until football starts, you don't need to run a ton. But I don't, or it's like, so I don't need to play catch up once the season starts coming around, because then if you do that, then the kids end up getting way too tired. Their lifts go down, they get weaker, and then by the time they get into camp, they feel like shit because they don't physically feel great. Mentally, they feel a little worn down. So it's the same kind of idea with training for a powerlifting meet. Just make sure you get all your ducks in a row and you're addressing the things you need to address. So when the time comes, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like when I was in college, I always made sure I was getting a B+ in all my classes, so I wouldn't have to study for a final, because I don't care about getting an A. You know, that way if I could just take a dump on the final. And so like finals week was never stressful for me. If I kicked ass in the final and I got an A, fine, that's great. If not, I still get I'm still rocking a 3.0. So that was the same kind of thing. So. Sure.
And then when you're at the competition, what's your mental strategy? You just getting really fucking angry, or?
No, I never know, because there's only, the way that like a young lifter, like you'll watch them lift and stuff, and they got like, they're all over the place, like this. And that's just dissipated energy. Mm-hmm. You have to learn how to channel that in. And you might be raging inside, but you have to keep that all contained. It's like a stick of dynamite. If you spread all the TNT all over the place, it's not going to pack much of a punch, but if it's all contained in one little area. So mentally, as far as powerlifting, I always open light. That was my big thing. I want to open with something I know I can crush, because if your opener on the squat is heavy and feels like shit, the whole meet is thrown, especially if you're mentally weak. The meet that I squatted 1,000, I opened up with 850. So I had 85. I knew what I wanted to do, which was 1,000. So 85%, and then 92.5%. My second was 925, and then 1,000. My 850, I got called on depth, but it felt like 225. I mean, it was a fucking joke. And so I came up, and it was explosive as all hell. And I racked it, and I was like, yeah, fuck. I was like, whoa. And some guy's like, you got all reds. I'm like, I didn't come here to squat 850, you fucking pussy.
You got all reds.
And so, for example, when I benched, whenever you're doing a lift, especially in a competition, all I did was force myself in positions I know I needed to get into. It was never like a mental rage. It was, listen, when I squat, all I'm going to do is push my knees out, and push my gut into my thighs, so to speak. I don't know if this makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And I just concentrate on a technical issue, because I've done 5 billion squats. I know I'm going to come up like an asshole. I'm going to come up explosive. I don't have to think about that. That's already been all those. I mean, since 13, I never missed a week of squatting. So it wasn't like I needed to, I knew what I wanted to do. So it was more about calming myself down. For example, I'll give you an example. So let's say it's Monday, it's a regular day in the gym, and we're all in the gym, and you're kind of dragging ass, but you kind of have to amp yourself up a little bit, right? Let's say we're box squatting or doing whatever. When you get to a meet, you may feel the same way, like kind of just normal, but your adrenaline is more than you think. If you do that same psych up technique that you would do on a regular day, it would take you higher, and then you just drop. You may not know it, but you have to take that shit into account. So you have to be more calm in a meet than you normally would think you would. And, one of the things my dad taught me at a very early age is, I did the meet 7,000 times in my head. I would visualize every single rep. I would, even when I'm lifting, I never got ahead of myself in a workout. So it's like, let's say I have to squat and do whatever, glute ham raises. The only thing that mattered was that rep on that set. It's all I cared about. And you're starting to see like there's a certain theme. It's just worry about what you got going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't, whatever I got going on after today, I'll just let that shit happen. I'm okay with it. But right now I'm talking to you guys, and that's what we're going to do. So basically wherever you are, be.
Yeah.
And but I also think all those years of competing, whether it be in cross country or track or wrestling or baseball.
You ran cross country?
Yeah, for 2 years. Dude,
at what fucking weight?
Yeah, when I was in junior high, I fucking made the state meet. And dude, I 1 year I wrestled and played football at the same time. So I would go to I ran cross country and played football. So I would go to cross country practice and then go to football. And then I wrestled and played basketball, like a little bit overlap. And then I ran track and played baseball and traveling baseball.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So when I was in 6th grade, I ran a 5:30 mile. So, and it's people like, man, you must have been this and that. I'm like, dude, I ran because I was fucking angry. I was like that kid. I had no reason to be angry, but everything I did was like, fuck, I hate everything. I hate everyone. Everyone hated me. Even when I lifted, I was genetically, obviously I have some gifts, but I'm not, I see some of our kids that I have come through. It's like, holy shit, dude. We had a kid who was about 305 pounds at the time. He jumped over, I think it was a 34-inch box. So it wasn't a hurdle. It was what are they, 16 by 16 or something?
More than that.
Yeah.
One of those foam boxes, or was it a metal? Yeah, dude,
Yeah,
they're more than that.
Yeah, and this is in high school. And this was after he bounded over kind of hurdle things, so it's boom. And I was like, holy fuck, dude. It's a huge dude. And there's a reason why he was like Mr. Ohio, lineman, something, whatever, all kinds of weird awards. He's still playing in college. But anyway, I had some gifts, but I think part of it was just my absolute anger, and I was so competitive. Like, I remember my first year in cross country, there was a kid on my team I really wanted to beat. I fucking hated him. And he was not, like, I didn't hate him. Like, he was a bad kid. Like, I talked to him all the time. I just never wanted, and he was a pretty good runner. And we were coming down the straightaway at the end, and I was getting closer. And I just did everything I could. I was cramping up everywhere. And when you run these cross-country meets, when you cross the line, they give you a popsicle stick with the place. Does that make sense? Because there's so many kids running. And I fucking jumped as far as I could and reached and grabbed it. And my dad later was like, dude, I've never been more proud of you. Because I'm like, even though he may have technically crossed first, I grabbed that popsicle stick like a motherfucker. I'm like, I fucking won. And again, I think that all that stuff leading up, I think, was super important. And I think Mark Bell calls it meat magic, not, your cock meat magic. But, sometimes you have to rely on your competitive nature to get you through some stuff. And I don't know if kids really do, they supposedly de-emphasize competition now. I don't know how true that really is in all areas. It's not really here. They still, youth sports, they still, do all that shit. So.
Also anger too, though, because like nowadays anger is seen as something bad, but anger is a motivator for change. I mean, that's like inherent for men, right? It's a masculine energy, anger. Yeah.
And you couldn't get any more vanilla than my upbringing. 2 parents, just middle class, parents loved me. I never had any issues with anything. But it was just like, let's put it this way. When I was in 3rd grade, I heard heavy metal for the first time. My cousins we were on our way to a baseball game, and they brought like a boombox, and they were playing some metal. And it was one of those things like when you see a boob for the first time, you're like, I don't know what that is, but I fucking want that. And when I heard it, I was like, oh man, fuck yeah. Like, I don't know what this is, dude, but I heard it. So like, I was like obsessed. Like, so when you hear Slayer for the first time, or I think Hell Awaits was out. And I was like, oh my God, fucking, At Dawn They Sleep, or, all that stuff. So I was just, I don't know why it was like that. I think it's just maybe just being a boy, I guess. And it wasn't drummed out of me. My parents never, thought it was a bad thing. was a good kid. I didn't get any trouble. It's not like I beat kids up or anything like that. So I remember my greatest day squatting in high school still. I squatted 400 for 10 when I was
in high school. Ooh.
And I was 180 pounds, maybe 85 or so. And it was every rep was pure fucking hatred. Like there's no way I could ever replicate that fucking hatred. I'm glad it's just not like that anymore. And but I like if I normally I could probably get 3. Like if I was just in a normal state, I was never like in a normal state, but I just remember like I'm getting 10, I'm gonna fucking die doing this. I'm fuck everything. And so yeah, and that carried me. It's exhausting sometimes. I'll be honest with you. It's not a good way to live, but it got me through football, and it got me through especially in college when you're a walk-on. No one gets shit on more than you. I mean, yes, I understand in life there's, people in Africa who are starving, but you know what I'm saying in the football world. And that just made me angry. Just fucking made me angry, I'm so sick of people saying, I'll never forget this. They're like, you're not curing cancer, I'm like, well, either are you. No one is. No one's cured cancers. Like, don't take your job so seriously. I'm like, dude. And I remember thinking, when you go get like a burger at Burger King or wherever, and they fuck up your order, how mad? Like, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, every job matters, dude. Don't tell me, like, just because my job isn't curing cancer that it doesn't matter. Go fuck yourself. You matter. Everything you do matters. And I'm not saying, like, it's the most important thing in the world, but, to some people, it's like, I hate that. You're not curing cancer. Now, what are you fucking doing? It's so goddamn important, Yep. That was a real eye-opener for me, because when I remember like going to like Taco Bell and they fucking make you a shitty taco. You're just angry, You're like, dude, and you're like, what the fuck? I just wanted some fucking tacos, and you give me stale taco shells, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! It shows you how, because then you start carrying that over and how important it is to be nice to people and polite. I went to get a burger the other day, and the lady's like, you're the nicest person she's like, I really appreciate it. You've been very nice to me. And just some people are kind of mean. I'm like, it's all right. Like, thank you. But, I wasn't going out, like, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. Just say thank you and, be appreciative of people. Drives me nuts. Like, I moved a cart for some lady and, at the grocery store yesterday or 2 days ago, and she's like, man, I really appreciate that. I'm like, dude, it's like, I just moved the cart, honey. I didn't give you a fucking rub down. So, I don't know. I guess that, I'm not some fucking peace-loving hippie, but it wouldn't kill you to be nice to people. So that's why I don't do customer service. That's why my wife does, because I would just be like, who the fuck cares, you fucking piece of shit?
That's why you can be nice to people.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't been sullied. Oh, some of the, guy gets mad because his package went to a different address, and then he put in the wrong address, so it's my fault. No. What a dick. You sent it to where I said you should. You should have known.
Dude, 500,000 copies. I could only fucking imagine what type of bullshit you're dealing with.
That's why with Amazon, we just let them deal with a lot of that shit too. It's nice. But I worked for EFS for like 10 years, so you'd hear everything.
Yeah. And that was when shipping sucked.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing that Amazon really hurt the small business with was they can afford to send everything like next day air. And it's like, dude, we're a small business. Like, we just can't, we don't have the profit. You think our profit margin is the same as Amazon? Yep. That dude's divorce, he gave the girl, like 300 billion?
70 billion.
Yeah. So she could lose 68 billion and still have 2 billion left over.
And just so you know, he made all that back, and he's worth like 120 billion right now.
But just like think about that. He could like lose like most of it, but be okay. So yeah, it's it just so that kind of stinks. But most people are fairly. It only takes one or two bad apples to ruin the bunch, so to speak. So I got nothing really to complain about, but sometimes my wife reads some of the emails like, you're not going to believe this dude. You know, so, but whatever. And then eventually they apologize. 99% of them will apologize. So I get it. Like, you have bad days too. It's not like I'm, you know, I don't know. Let's put it this way. Whenever I'm at a restaurant, which of course, because of the Corona bros, you can't go to anymore. God forbid. Yeah, fuck me. And like, I couldn't think of a worse job in the world. I'd rather fucking work in a sewer than work at a restaurant. And I'm always super nice to the waitress or whatever you're supposed to call them these days, waiter. And some guy came up to me. He's like, man, you must have worked in this industry. I'm like, no, there's a reason why, because I don't want to work in this industry. Like, oh, I couldn't imagine having to deal with that shit. Where's my Coke? You asked for a Sprite, but I wanted a Coke. I would last like 20 minutes. Just be staring down some girl's top and then fucking up there.
Listen, Jim, I know we've kept you for so long. One last question from me.
Yeah.
What is there anything else that you're excited about or you want to try and achieve? I mean, you got your 1,000-pound squat. You've done a fantastic book. Is there anything else that you kind of want to tick off?
You know, this, as far as like, I still have like some physical goals I want to kick some ass on, but you have to do with the weight vest and all this other stuff. But I just want to see, and this is, you know, impossible to measure. I want to see my kids grow up to be fucking awesome. And I don't really care what they do. And in fact, I told both my kids, I said, listen, you can live with me the rest of your goddamn life as long as you're fucking doing something awesome. I don't really care. I would love to be whatever, but you know, if you're like, you know, if you're a shitty touring musician and you can barely make things and you're working at, you know, you're working and you're practicing, I'll help you out, man. I'm not one of those dads like, at 18, you got to get out of here. It's like, dude, my job, my dad still is a dad to me. He still fucking gets on my case about shit. And that's what a dad is, you know, and so that's the one thing I want to grow old enough to make sure my kids are fucking awesome. And then honestly, I just want to spend as much time with my wife as possible. I love my wife more than anything. Dude, my life changed. I've already been married and divorced before, which I think everyone should get divorced one time. Because you realize that what you couldn't, you know, what is not good. It's, but anyway, my wife we've been together for 10 years now, and we've never even raised our voices to each other. Because I'm like, my house is like my sanctuary. And I don't want to like have to drive up to my house like, oh my God, I don't want to go here. Like, everything is horrible. I want it to be my so-called safe space. And so I just like hanging out with her. You know, like we don't get in each other's way, you know, and we respect each other's boundaries and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't train my wife either, which I always think is a bad idea. Like, my wife wants to start training. What's your advice? I'm like, have her go somewhere else, man.
Outsource.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't want to, and she'll ask me a few questions here and there. I'm like, yeah, you know, think about this. But she's on her own, man. And I'm okay with that. But, you know, I still want to do a bunch of books. I want to do as much as I can to help the community. They've been good to me. The parents have been great to me. You know, I like being here. The only thing I worry about is we're like kind of the next town that's going to get developed, I think. And I hate to see, like, in 30 years, just all these fucking assholes come in here and ruin what we have here. I feel like we should put some, like, fake crack houses and, like, a sewer plant, you know, like, dude, tough times, not good living here, you know? And, yeah, I am fairly, I'm not going to say I'm content because I still have a lot of shit I want to do, but I'm very happy at where I am in my life. So, and I got a great group of friends, you know, everyone, you know, so I have nothing to complain about. And, you know, my band recorded a couple new things. We already been in the studio once, and it's just been like, I love doing shit like that where you I still got that 16-year-old fucking, you know, I still want to play heavy, stupidly ridiculous music out of really loud amps. And like I play on two full stacks now. in my basement because, you know.
You need that.
And people are like, what the fuck? And I got like a couple drum sets down there. I'm like, man, you don't know. So my drummer, he lives about 2 hours away. He comes whenever he can. And it's just like, I mean, it's fucking loud. Oh, you could hear it 3 blocks down. And it's just, how old are you guys? 45. You know, I'm okay with that. I think it's important to do shit like that, man. I don't want to I just don't want to be a turd, you know, in my own eyes. So
I agree.
Whatever that is, you know, anyway.